Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Usually when I talk at colleges, I'm the best dressed, but look at you, all wearing suits and ties. I couldn't afford that when I was at college, but thank you for the invitation. We're running short of time, so I'm here today to talk about CSR, which, as a CEO, you ignore at your peril. One day, the consumer's reactions to your business actions will catch you off guard and potentially damage your brand, or even worse, your personal reputation. Some of you are probably too young to remember this, but in the mid-90s, Nike was subjected to a consumer boycott in the mid-1990s after an article in the New York Times exposed poor labour practices in their Asian and Latin American factories. Or, you probably won't remember this either, but BP sunk an oil rig in the North Sea in the mid-90s, the Brent Spar. Imagine doing that today, even though BP's recently been in the news. Sorry about that. BP's recently been in the news for flooding the Gulf of Mexico with oil. Or how fast food and FMCG companies are now held accountable for our obesity. Activist organisations are now highly effective in leveraging the media to highlight a company's CSR shortcomings. Unfortunately, they sometimes prefer to target large multinationals rather than real causes. You take, for instance, Nestlé. Nestlé is the largest supplier of bottled water in the world. They're also a major target in the debate about conservation and access to fresh water. Yet Nestlé only consumes 0.0008% of the world's fresh water supply annually. Agriculture, on the other hand, uses 70%, but individual farmers and their inefficient irrigation methods do not offer such tempting or large targets to activist organisations, convenient scapegoats for government incompetence. PepsiCo in India contributes more water back into the ground through water conservation than it extracts for the pleasure we sell in the form of beverages. In fact, packaged beverage products constitute less than 2% of the beverage occasion in India. And I should point out, it may not be particularly clear that actually I'm President and CEO of the largest Pepsi bottler in India. And hence my slight bias towards what PepsiCo is doing. I'm not sure if you know that a kilo of rice takes around about 3,000 litres of water to cultivate. And unfortunately in India we have unregulated groundwater access, which causes severe shortages in many places. We also have a situation in India where we only have 30 days storage for our future water needs compared to most developed nations having upwards of 900 days of water storage. Without effective CSR, who's going to be the popular target during a drought? Is it going to be the poor, uneducated farmers? Is it going to be the local politicians? Or is it going to be the large American multinational with a soft drink factory in town? CSR is often put in the following buckets by corporations: moral obligation, sustainability, license to operate, and reputation. Moral obligation for a corporation is really about maintaining the highest ethical standards, respecting people and communities, complying with local laws, such as paying your taxes, but also about balancing competing values. Take, for instance, the recent tussle with the Chinese government. How did Google balance its moral obligation to protect its users' privacy and disdain of censorship with the Chinese government's desire to censor sensitive sites, while considering the financial gains for Google in operating in the world's second largest economy? Or one consider the dilemma that BlackBerry currently faces in India. Sustainability was defined in the 1980s by the Norwegian Prime Minister Gro Brundtland as meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. For a corporation, that means we should operate in ways to secure long-term economic performance, not adopting practices that are socially detrimental nor environmentally damaging. This works best when the issues can coincide with the corporate's economic goals, such as McDonald's advances in technology to wrap its food, reducing its solid waste by up to 40% and its costs by 30%. It's a smart business decision that happened to have economic benefits for the McDonald's shareholders. But sustainability can become vague. Transparency is more sustainable than corruption. Good employment practices are more sustainable than sweatshops, as Nike has found out. and leaders without a strategic understanding of CSR are prone to postpone the short-term costs of compliance, which can lead to far greater costs when the company is found out via the media to have violated its social contract with the local communities. Licence to Operate offers a way for corporations to identify social issues that matter to its stakeholders and make decisions about them, fostering constructive dialogue with neighbours, regulators, activists or the local elite whose forbearance is necessary for your operations. Think mining and chemical factories. The risk here is that while the dialogue with these people is good, it can totally cede your CSR agenda to minority groups and pressure groups. You risk developing a series of tactics rather than a strategy, which results in never-ending public relations events and minimal value to society and the corporation. Focusing on reputation carries the same risk. Focus on satisfying the external audience to protect reputation often leads to high-profile calls for marketing campaigns seeking a strategic benefit it really finds. A corporation may pursue social responsibility initiatives as a form of insurance in the hope that its reputation for social consciousness will temper public criticism in times of crisis. This confuses public relations with social and business results. Such companies as Body Shop and Ben & Jerry's have an extraordinary long-term commitment to society, but the social benefit achieved and the business benefit is hard to The connection between good deeds and consumer attitudes is so indirect it's impossible to measure. Undoubtedly, the CEO and the staff of Body Shop feel good about what they do, but are the business benefits of improved consumer preference and stock market performance there? That the results are inconclusive at best. The reason why the corporation must benefit, not just the society, is that CSR must not be subject to the change of management. The new CEO doesn't like ballet or swings in the business cycle. We can no longer afford to send 2,000 people to university anymore. Ben & Jerry's, for instance, ended up being acquired by Unilever. The reality is, for the corporation is to be successful, it needs a healthy society. Education, equal opportunity, healthcare are all essential to provide a productive workforce. Safe products and working conditions lower a company's costs and make their products more attractive to an increasing sophisticated consumer base. Good government, the rule of law are essential for innovation. A healthy society creates expanding demand for business as consumer aspirations grow. Any business that pursues its aims at the expense of society which it lives in will find its success short-lived. A healthy society needs successful companies. No social program can rival the business sector when it comes to creating jobs or prosperity. If governments, NGOs and other participants in civil society weaken the ability of business to compete or operate productively, then ultimately that society will lose competitiveness, jobs will disappear, and the wealth that pay taxes will disappear or move overseas. Business and society have a mutual dependence on each other. It is critical that both business decisions and social policies follow a principle of shared value. If either party follows policies that benefit one but not the other, the disaster will soon follow. As I said earlier, if the company doesn't benefit economically from CSR, they will not pursue the program long term. A CSR strategy has to start by identifying the points of intersection between a corporation and society that it operates in. These are, for example, hiring practices, waste emissions and disposal of waste. A manufacturing operation in India is going to have different social consequences than a manufacturing operation in New Zealand. What occurs in society also impacts a corporation. Every company operates within a competitive context, usually globally. Social conditions form a key part of this context. Society's impact on competitiveness attracts less attention than value changes, but we can have a far greater impact on business. The competitive context is really just boiled down to 4 different areas. The quality and quantity of available business inputs, that really means human capital, transportation, infrastructure and the like. Rules and incentives that govern competition, for example, IP protection, safeguards against corruption, attractiveness for inward investment. Size and sophistication of target consumers, how are their purchase decisions influenced by product quality, safety and consumer rights, and the local availability of supporting businesses such as service providers to support the product. These provide the context and opportunities for an effective CSR program, so while most organisations focus more on CSR today, these activities are usually not connected to the business strategy, more to do with making the owner or the CEO feel good about enhancing their personal social standing. the result is suboptimal for both the corporation and society. Companies should focus on a fewer number of carefully targeted CSR programs that are tightly linked to the core business objective. For example, PepsiCo and water, Nestle and farmers. This approach will deliver greater benefits to the corporation and to society as a whole. And given to the multitude of worthy social causes and issues that we all face daily, the fact is no corporation can solve them all. A strategic CSR approach is important to focus resources so that we can actually make a difference and provide some real social and economic benefits from our programs. Focus on issues that are related to you, leave other non-related issues to someone else who has a vested interest and can do it better. If you're forming a strategic CSR program, look carefully at what the societal issues are and the impact of your corporation and what that has in the pursuit of its aims and what you can do for the local community. What are the systems and processes which have the most impact on the external environment? In our case, it's how much water we take from the ground. Development of an expanded menu of CSR program options to create corporate opportunities associated with the societal issues you've identified. This means generating ideas or alternatives for countering the identified threats or creating an opportunity based on the issues. Look at both traditional and non-traditional ways to solve the problem. Analyse the strategic CSR options you've come up with based on the consideration of economic and societal impacts. Remember, we're talking about a program that delivers benefits to both you and the community. And make sure that you allocate sufficient resources to programs so that you can actually carry it out and do it. For companies, it brings us into contact with areas of the community we're not usually comfortable dealing with, NGOs, government departments. And the last part is you need to measure your program's success and publicise it and talk about it. I see many times that so-and-so donated such and such, or we put $1 million here or $1 million there. But you need to talk about what that $1 million did. We gave $1 million to farmers, which allowed them to grow more potatoes, 50% increase in yield, which meant they had more money, which meant they spent less time in crime or whatever. The key for any strategic CSR is for us to achieve economic and it's at the same time. It's a detailed, systematic process. It requires a lot of work. It requires creativity and careful planning as well as long-term commitment to ensure success. The benefits are going to be improved economic impact, increased sales and reduction of organisation risk for your business. All the time creating new opportunities for growth and all the time having a positive impact on the community that you work in, which for all of us is very good. So I'd like to wrap up and say that it's been great talking to you today. I'd also like to say that what's really important in your future is that it's not important where you're from, what nationality you are, what race you are. What's really important is the talent and passion that you bring to your role. And one day, hopefully, business will be an environment we operate where race no longer serves a purpose and that we all work as one community based purely on talent and ability. And I wish you luck for your futures.